Good morning, Wadsworth. Hey, we're back. We're back in full force. I'm Janie Parrish from the Wadsworth Area Chamber of Commerce, along with my stunningly gorgeous co-host, Michael Reynolds. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Janie. Welcome back.
You probably missed me saying that, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yes, my ego has suffered over the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, we're going to build you back up. Yeah. Hey, today we're here with somebody who is just crazy about purple. Yep. And that's Stephanie Mueller from the Alzheimer's Association. So good morning.
Good morning.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we are so tickled to learn about the Alzheimer's Association, what you do, and also to talk about the walk coming up in September.
Awesome. Yeah. So the Alzheimer's Association is the nation's largest organization dedicated to Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Our mission is to have a world without Alzheimer's. And there are currently 5.5 million Americans that are affected by this disease, and they're projecting that to grow. So by the year 2050, there will be over 14 million Americans affected by the disease.
Oh boy, what a number. Yeah, what a number. And truly a horrible disease.
It really is.
It's just horrible.
Yeah, that's got to be about, is that about 1 in 50, 1 in 60 Americans?
So 1 in 3 seniors are diagnosed with either Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. The numbers are staggering and they're growing. And certainly when you think about the age population that will be living in the year 2050, it's a lot of your baby boomers that will get to that adult senior age.
It's about the time we arrive there, isn't
That's
it?
right.
It will be the largest population of people, at that time. We're taking care of ourselves better, we're living longer, and certainly the disease is a challenge. And it's hard to find people nowadays that haven't been touched by it personally or know someone that has.
Sure. So tell us, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Good question. So a lot of people kind of use those terms interchangeably.
Yes.
So dementia really talks about the symptoms, the cognitive impairment, the memory loss, the loss of executive functions and things that you would normally do on a daily basis. And Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. So there's over 130 different types of dementia diseases. So if we think about it, liken it to when you go to the doctor isn't going to diagnose you with a runny nose, head congestion. Probably diagnose you with the flu, a common cold, sinus infection.
Okay.
So while sometimes the doctors will say, we diagnose you with dementia, it's not truly accurate. So they're just talking more about the symptoms, but it's not until they determine how it's really affected your brain. There's dementia that comes with ALS and with Parkinson's. And so that's one of the great things about the association is that while it's in our name, Alzheimer's, we will help anyone with any form of memory loss.
Is Alzheimer's the largest segment of
It is. So it's the most common. It's the one that most people get. It's the one that most people are aware of. But yes, it is.
Oh, what are some of the early symptoms? Because I've noticed a couple of things.
So a lot of times people call us and say, I'm starting to forget my car keys. Does this mean that I have dementia or Alzheimer's? Well, not necessarily. So you need your car keys to drive, right?
Sure.
We understand the functions of driving a car. And we're able to retrace our steps. So oftentimes if we stop and take a minute and say, okay, last night I came home and I had the groceries and I walked into the kitchen, went across to the counter, and you go look and there's the keys. It's where you really start to you're looking at the keys and maybe not associating with them to drive, or you get in the car and not realizing that you need the keys to drive. So it's really affecting your daily life.
Oh, okay.
We all truly have a lot going on in our minds, and I think we can hold up to 8 or 9 things at one time before we start losing some of those thoughts on those ideas. But it's really where we're truly forgetting things and truly not remembering, not being able to speak properly or not being able to read properly.
Now, is there testing that can be done?
There's currently not a conclusive test that says, yes, definitively you have it, although they're working on that. So one of the largest things we focus on is research. There's been a ton of research that's coming. But certainly there's cognitive tests that if you go to your physician that they can kind of put you through to say that, yes, you are headed down that path, or maybe it is in the early stages or middle of the disease.
Is there a common age range where you should start, or not start looking for it, but would be more likely for it to start occurring?
So typically that's like your late 70s, early 80s. So when I mentioned 1 in 3 seniors, that's kind of the age range.
Okay.
However, we are seeing early onset. So we are seeing people in their 50s, in their 60s being diagnosed with it as well. It typically starts to affect the brain about 20 years before the first symptom is seen.
Wow.
Which is a challenge with the disease to know, how do we stop it from there? How do we make that change from there if they're not even able to see it at that point in time?
Okay.
So, and I remember my mother had Alzheimer's, and I can remember reading so much about it, trying to understand, because it's such a mystery. To me it was a mystery.
Sure.
And because it looked like my mom was the same person, but she wasn't.
Yes.
So I remember reading where vision gets smaller in Alzheimer's patients, and that's scary.
It
to me.
is.
Yeah.
It is because it does. Their vision tunnel is smaller. They're not remembering things that they used to because of the vision impairments that can happen. Navigating and moving isn't always as easy. Falls can take place. And so it does become a challenge. And so much has been learned about the disease, and it's not that taboo. So we probably remember years ago that we just had that crazy aunt or grandparent that,
Sure.
and it's not a normal part of aging. So that's one of the things to know is this is not supposed to happen to us as we age. Certainly we forget things as we age, but it's not supposed to affect the daily life like it does. So it's an actual disease that's diagnosed and happens to a person.
Is it more common now, mostly because we live longer a longer time period, as well as diagnostic ability?
Yes, for certain. Yeah, so the fact that we're living longer, there's obviously more people at that age range, and then also just being able to diagnose it and know that it's not just something else. There could be other things, but it is the 6th leading cause of death in the nation, and the only one in the top 10 where there's no cure, treatment, or prevention.
Wow.
So let that sink into
Yeah.
that is that once people are given that diagnosis, where do they turn? And so we like to work with a lot of physicians' offices to be a partner with them, to be able to help their patients to navigate through the disease. Whether it's that early, they're just getting it and they're needing that help. Certainly, talking about your mother and the things that were happening to her, the association can definitely be a resource and be able to explain, here's what's happening and here's how you can help through the process.
Well, even though there isn't, you said no, a cure or treatment for it, are there any types of things that people should do to, stave off the early onset or stave off? Are there things we can do to actually minimize the early occurrence of it?
Yeah, there's a lot of studies that have been going on as far as nutrition. So they're finding what's healthy for the heart is also healthy for the brain. So eating nutrition-wise, good nutrition habits. Socialization is also very important.
Okay.
So being out and about, not being reclusive, like being out with other people, taking part in activities. Exercise. So, and it doesn't have to be crazy exercise. It could be walking, but ballroom dancing is actually the #1 activity to do for brain activity because it's heart healthy and then it also causes your brain to think.
We're on.
And then certainly...
The problem that you have to walk with a limp after I step on your foot all the time will be another issue we'll have to deal with.
But we can.
We can.
That's right.
ward off hopefully memory loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, are there, I wanted to say, like support groups that you provide, because that would seem like that would be so important for caregivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned the research side of it. So the association is the largest nonprofit funder of research in the world. So ultimately, again, our goal is to have that world without Alzheimer's and to provide that funding for research. But we know the research, unfortunately, isn't coming fast enough to help those currently affected. So we provide a whole host of free programs and services. So we have a helpline that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have caregiver support groups as well. So where those caregivers can come and talk with other individuals who are going through the same thing. So they don't have to feel like they're the only ones. There's actually 2 that are held in Medina County, one at the Wadsworth Suprema Center,
Nice.
and the other is in Brunswick. And they meet once a month. and they're able to just get that support they need and get the knowledge that they need to navigate through the disease.
Now, my mother was at the inn at Coleridge, yeah, and they had a memory care, and I would go every night and rub her hands. Is there things that you can do, like for some comfort? Because it just feels like she was afraid of things, that normally she never would have been afraid of.
Yeah, certainly. So, each individual is different and reacts to it a little bit different. And so a lot of what we do at the association is to figure out, how do you take the cues from your loved one? Because maybe they're not verbally able to explain to you what's going on or what they're feeling. But we work with individuals to be able to work with their loved one to, if it's maybe rubbing your hands, you can probably tell when you did that it was calming to her. Sometimes touch is very sensitive to people. And so doing that might set off a whole different set of reactions in that person. So we will help them to be able to navigate through that.
What was really funny about that is that I would take a different lotion. I'm like real big on Bath and Body Works lotions. So I would take a different lotion every night, and she had a different reaction to the different smells of the lotion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know with memory, I've read that smell is one of the most dominant senses as far as causing memories to reoccur. If you drive by and smell a certain smell of cookies, it reminds you of your grandmother, that type of thing. So that would make sense that could trigger those type of things.
Yeah, so certainly maybe whatever scent you had given her triggered a memory that wasn't as pleasant for her. Music is another one. So a lot of times we'll hear stories about residents in memory care communities that maybe are nonverbal and haven't spoken since they moved in. Then they'll hear a song and they're singing along to the song. So it's pretty amazing what goes on in the brain. And there's still a lot that's not known about the brain, which is one of the challenges with the disease is, trying to figure out the brain and then figuring out, what causes it and how to treat it.
My mom had a doll that she never let go of. Yeah. And I kept thinking, because it never had any clothes on or anything. It was just a naked baby, and she never let go of that. And I kept thinking, I got to wash this thing because I don't know where it's been, and I didn't have the heart to take it away from her, long enough to. So what's with that, with the baby?
So it may have reminded her of being a mom early on.
Okay.
So a lot of times we say it's like a sweater. So if you have that thread on the sweater and you start pulling, it kind of unravels your memory. And so you'll lose your short-term memory, and oftentimes they will go back to an earlier point in time. So it may have been when she was the first mom. And so certainly that instinct was to take the baby with you, make sure the baby is being cared for. And it's always just living with them where they're at, meeting them where they're at. So if she thinks she's 20 years old and a new mom and that's her baby, then yes, she is that 20-year-old person with that baby. Not trying to argue with them or being combative and say, but no, you're you're 80 years old and your children are, I'm their child, I'm now grown.
Yeah. Because we made a deal in my family, you just went along with her, whatever. Because there wasn't any point in, going, no, that's not right, Mom. No, you
that
can't.
would have just probably upset her.
Yeah, and it just seemed like, but I think that's such a common reaction to people with dementia to try to correct them, hoping that they'll go, oh yeah.
Right, yes. And so that's what we do. We have a program called Side-by-Side Care Consultations where we sit down with person with memory loss if they're able to be with us, or just the caregivers and help them through that. It's not intuitive to us to just say, okay, yes, live in their reality. It's we're trying to correct them or trying to say, but no, this is it. So we help families to be able to come to a better understanding of that or feel more comfortable doing that, because it is challenging, and oftentimes this disease is more challenging for the family members than necessarily the person with the memory loss. They're hopefully happy in their world and safe and secure where they're at, and it's just us as caregivers that we kind of lose that person before they're actually gone.
Right, which in some ways is easier and because it's a long process.
Can be.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be a long process and certainly costly as far as medical bills and if you do have to place them into a care community of some sort.
That's for sure. Now, say you went to the doctor did some testing on you, and she said to you, or to you and your family or whatever, I'm seeing some early signs of dementia, and what should they do?
Definitely encourage them to reach out to us for just the resources. So as I mentioned, we have that 1-800 number that's literally available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes it's just that one-time call. So they're just looking for pamphlets, information, something tangible to read and absorb. But then, could be they've gone to the doctors with their loved one and the doctor says they can't be at home by themselves anymore. And now you're thinking, well, what do I do? Do I need home care to come in? Do I need to place them into a care community? And we can work through that with them. As I said, a lot of your physicians would love to spend all the time with their patients, but with their caseload, it's not always possible. So we like to work in tandem with physicians to have them refer to us. We can help, and then we can follow back up with the physician and say, here's what's been happening, since maybe the last time you saw your patient. But we can definitely help them navigate through whatever questions they have, whatever concerns they have.
Because I think that was the hardest thing to know when my mom and dad needed more help, you know what I mean, than what could be given to them. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because they're probably resistant to it.
Yeah, my dad was like, just take me anywhere, but my mom cried and cried, didn't want to leave her house, but we knew that she needed more help, and that's a tough time. It's a horrible time.
It is, and it's a safety issue for all involved. So we want to make sure that the person with memory loss is safe and secure wherever they're at, but then also that you as the adult child taking care of them or being responsible for them, if you're off doing your work and daily jobs, you need to know that they're in a safe place. And so we work through those scenarios to know, and caregiver stress and burnout too happens a lot. A lot of times you see the caregivers start to develop illnesses or not taking care of themselves as much because they're worried about their loved one and putting all their time and energy into them.
Or just physically being worn out. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure it can be very, and mentally.
And mentally too.
It is.
But I can remember when I worked at hospice in Medina County, oftentimes the caregiver died before the patient just because they didn't take care of themselves, that they were taking care of somebody else.
They put all their focus on that person.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And sometimes that happens, and a lot of times we don't even realize that someone is taking care of that aging parent or even a spouse. So we like to go out to businesses to provide lunch and learn and education programs as well.
Oh, nice.
Because a lot of employers are surprised that they have employees that might be taking time off to go to doctor's appointments or, even extreme cases having to quit their job, go into savings because maybe the funding isn't there to place their loved one somewhere for that home care. So they're essentially becoming that caregiver. So, being able to help and say, there's resources that we can assist with, and we can be able to point you in the right direction of resources as well.
Sure. Well, tell us about the Alzheimer's Walk coming up.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, all of the programs and services we provide are free of charge, and we are happy to do so. And the walk is our largest fundraising event. So there is over 600 walks that take place across the country. They'll start in a few short weeks, and they'll go all the way through the October timeframe. The walk is the largest awareness and fundraiser for the association. And what it does is provide information about what we do, but then also provides that funding to help us do what we do. So the walk for Medina County is coming up quickly, less than 2 months away, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It will be Saturday, September 21st. It's at the Medina Community Recreation Center. It's an amazing day.
Yes.
It is free of charge, so we encourage people to form teams and don't let the word teams scare you. You can have a family team, you could be a team of 1, you could be a team of 5, you could be a team of 100, and as I said, free of charge. And then we hope that people will do fundraising, at least raise the $100 to get the t-shirt, so they can ask friends for donations, they can put together fundraising events, they can do elaborate different fundraisers to raise those funds. And then we come together on September 21st, and it's really a celebration. it's kind of like a big support group, because you will have people there who have lost their loved ones. You will have people who are bringing their loved ones who currently have memory loss. And then just community members who believe in our mission and really want to help to further the cause with us.
Yeah, my family walked last year
Yeah.
in memory of my mom, and it was really emotional, but we felt good about what we were doing, and we just knew she would be so pleased that her family was doing that for her. But it was great. I mean, I don't know how many people were there, but it was great.
Yeah, last year's event we had 500 participants, and we raised $79,000.
Oh my gosh.
Which is amazing. So the Medina County community has certainly embraced the association, embraced the walk. And as I said, it's so hard to not find somebody who has been touched or know somebody who has been touched by it. And then for Walk Day, we get the promise flowers, which I know are displayed down below the desk.
Good.
So everyone that attends gets one of those beautiful flowers. And they're different colors for a reason. So you take the color based on why you're there. Orange, because you support our mission. You'll take yellow if you're a caregiver, whether you're a personal caregiver or professional. Purple for those that have lost someone to the disease. And then blue is reserved for those with memory loss. So as I said, we will have families that bring their loved ones out, and it's just great to have them there and have them experience the day in whatever way that they're experiencing it. During our opening ceremonies, we have someone on stage that represents each one of those colors, and then we tell their story.
So what started you down the path of working with the Alzheimer's Association?
Good question. So last week I celebrated my 4-year anniversary with the association, which is crazy. So this is my 5th walk season.
Wow.
I had worked in nonprofits before, and I was just kind of looking for a career change. I say fortunately, I had not had anybody in my life personally that had been affected by the disease. I knew it was a great mission, and I had known people that work for the organization. However, since then, we have had a family friend of my husband's and their father has been diagnosed. And we see them on a fairly regular basis. And to see him decline from a vibrant person, is really challenging. But it feels good because the association has been able to help the family and provide them with resources and help them as they navigate through the disease. And then certainly being here and working with all of our wonderful supporters, hearing their stories and meeting their loved ones, it's really a sad disease.
Very sad. Yeah. I think that with other diseases, there's always like a hope that even for a little bit it'll turn around, but with dementia, Alzheimer's, it does not.
It does not, yeah. And unfortunately, without that cure, treatment, or prevention, there's drugs that are available that really help with the symptoms, but it's a short-term fix. It's not like a long-term. It's not really going to delay it, change it.
Eventually, you're going to continue to progress.
Exactly. It's going to help for a short term, and maybe help to lessen the anxiety that person feels. But there's been so much that has done, if you think of heart disease and cancer. At one point in time, there weren't any survivors from those diseases either.
Right.
So the association's been around since the early 80s, so we're relatively new compared to some of those. But there's certainly been so much progress that's been made with research that ultimately we're confident we will find that first survivor one day. And I always like to say, hopefully it would put us out of a job one day, that we will have more survivors than anything else for the disease.
Now, how can people contact you if they need resources or would like to participate in the walk?
Yeah, so I mentioned our 1-800 number, the 24/7 number. So it's 1-800-272-3900. That works across the country. One of the great things about that number is there's 77 chapters just like us across the country servicing areas. So based on the area code from which you call, it will route you to your local chapter. And then certainly if they're interested in the walk, they can go to alz.org/walk. Then they're able to find their closest walk to them, sign up their team, and then they're ready to go. And we're always looking for sponsors, so we're always looking for companies to get involved if they're looking to get their name out there, to market in the area, or just to get involved with the association. We look for sponsors. And then planning committee members. So we look for people that help us. So I am one person with a whole host of volunteers behind me that helps put together this event. We meet once a month. We start in January. And there's been some great people that have come along and help us to promote the walk, help us to recruit teams, help us with the logistics that take place.
Because it's huge.
It is
Yeah.
big.
When you think of 500 people all going out the door in one direction,
It's
yeah,
pretty
and everything that
amazing.
goes on ahead of time. And you've partnered with the Village of St. Edward at Wadsworth.
We have, yes. So the Village of St. Edward at Wadsworth is coming back for the second year as the presenting sponsor for the Medina County Walk. They've been amazing. They're just a great partner of ours, and certainly with their residents and having the memory care community there, they understand our mission and they support what we do. And they have been a great resource, not only for the community of Wadsworth, but then just helping us to connect with those in Wadsworth and helping them to understand more about our services.
Boy, we can't even thank you enough.
Yes.
We cannot even thank you enough for all that you're doing. The education piece alone, you know, is just so important. And then to be able to raise that type of money for research, amazing.
It is amazing
Yeah.
when I look at it, but you know, it's because we have great supporters. It's because we have people that are willing to, you know, step up and help provide that awareness and share the message. You know, one of the things that I feel is so sad when I hear someone say, "Oh, I wish I had known about you when my
Yeah.
loved one."
Sure.
You know, so how do we not have that anymore? How do we make sure that people realize, you know, kind of plant the seed? Hopefully, maybe they don't need us right now. Hopefully they never need us or know someone that needs us, but you know, they just at least to realize that we're here and able to provide those resources.
Well, amazingly, we're out of time already. We could just talk to Stephanie.
Absolutely.
You could be a professional speaker.
Oh, well,
But
thank you.
You know what? It comes from your heart.
It does.
You can see the passion, and that always makes a great public speaker.
Oh, well, thank you.
So thanks for all you do, Miss Stephanie Mueller.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having the passion that you have for
Well,
it.
thank
and
you.
affecting so many lives positively.
Yeah.
Yep. So sign us out.
Have a great week, Wadsworth.